deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Who was David's God?
Our God.
Our God's David's God. The Lord Almighty was David's God. And David knew it. Who was this Philistine's God? Some stone statue sitting in a temple in a foreign land. David knew who was on his side. He knew his covenant with God. He knew that God was his God. Go to verse 40. Saul agrees to let him go out, but he says, put on my armor, a little bit of protection. I'm going to at least try and look out for you a little bit, right? And David says, I can't wear this stuff. I can't even stand up in this stuff. Remember, Saul stood head and shoulders above everyone else. He was also a big man. Right? If you read through earlier on, it talks about Saul was head and shoulders above every other man in Israel. So he's a big man, so his armor is big too. And he's going to protect David with his armor. And David says, what am I going to do with this? I can't even walk. So he took off the armor, left it with Saul. And he took the staff in his hand, verse 40, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand approached the Philistine. David knew where he was going with this. This is, you know what he was believing God for. He's believing God for a miracle here. Because in the natural, he's dead. He's beyond dead. But David knew what he was believing God for. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. Like, what are you? You're not even worth my effort. You know, if there was any other man, I would have at least given him the respect of a warrior. But you're nothing. You're just a bug. You know, you're just a beetle that needs to be crushed or something like that. He despised him. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. David knew his covenant. David knew his God. And he knew that what God had given him was enough if he gave it back to God, that God would perform the miracle in his life. And he spoke to his enemy. He didn't cower and say, oh God, help us, we're in trouble. That's what the rest of the army was doing. They're hiding. I hope he didn't see me. How many of you watched I love this. I'm not a huge fan of VeggieTales, but they do this David and Goliath story. And there's a bunch of peas on one side. And the rest of the vegetables are up on the other side. The Israelites are the big vegetables. The Philistines are the peas, right? And they're standing there. They're yelling at each other. And finally they say, well, we'll send out our strongest man, and you send out your strongest man, and they'll fight, and whoever wins will win, right? And so the vegetables look at each other and say, and they look at the peas up on the other side and say, well, one little bounce and they're crushed. So, yeah, sure, let's go for it. Well, here comes this monstrosity of a zucchini or whatever he is, comes bounding through there, and they're like, what? And they all run and hide. No, I hope he didn't see me. I hope he didn't see me. Cowering. And that's literally what happened, right? The men of Israel went and hid so that Goliath wouldn't see them. So he didn't all of a sudden say, hey, you, I'm calling you out. Come on, let's fight. None of them wanted to take that chance because, well, he was big, and I'm thinking they forgot their covenant. David knew his covenant. He was a man after God's own heart. So he got up in Goliath's face and he said, today my God is going to give you into my hands. You're done, finished, it's over, you're mine. So he took his sling, put in a stone, and he slung that stone, and God did the rest. Did more, abundantly, exceeding more than what God had, or what he had hoped for. Mark 11:23. Anybody getting something today? Mark 11:23. We'll start at verse 22. Have faith in God, Jesus answered. I tell you the truth. If anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believe that what he says will happen, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. If you're believing God for something, believe God for it.